It's 5:30, so good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ottumwa City Council meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and if everybody would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Here.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Here.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Here.
Councilmember Cavanis?
Here.
Councilmember Basu?
Here.
Mayor Johnson?
Here. The next item is to approve our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Cavanis?
Yes.
Councilmember Basu?
Yes.
The next item is to approve our agenda for tonight's city council meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So move. Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Cavanis?
Yes.
Councilmember Basu?
Yes.
The next item is our city administrator's report to council and citizens. I'll turn it over to Phil Rath, our city administrator.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. Tonight, the first thing that I have up on here is to receive the biannual report of the Ottumwa Human Rights Commission. Under our code, when this group was created, one of their deliverables was to provide a biannual report or a report every 2 years of their activities. And with us tonight, we have Jackie Pope, who is currently the chair of that group, and John Fenner, who was the previous chair of that group. And they're here to present that report before the council. Thank you.
Everyone has this in their packet, right?
Correct.
This page, okay. So I'm just going to go through this and just give you the brief side of it. The Ottumwa Human Rights Commission was established in June of 2022 by the City Council. We are here today to offer the biannual report to the council as required under the founding ordinance. Our first several meetings in 2022 were organizational and educational, with the election of officers, presentations, and so forth from the Iowa Human Rights Commission and others. These presentations included our likely roles as a commission, also the rules of decorum for meetings, instructions in simple parliamentary procedure, Iowa open meeting law requirements, and techniques for short and long-term goal setting. We then worked for several months to develop initial long terms. So the other things that we've done is, I know you have a copy, so we have 3 of our subcommittees. Our first subcommittee is the Education and Advocacy. The second subcommittee is Marketing, and the third is Policy and Ultimate Goals. We are attaching a summary of the outline of the projects and so forth and the accomplishments of the progress. I just wanted to just let everyone know that this has been a lot of work. It's been enjoyable. I've heard and felt people working really hard, giving their best, and our best moment is when we go to our public affairs and we say, people will say, why are you here? And we say, because we want you to have a happy, safe place to live. Everyone smiles. Surveys, they do surveys for us and so forth. So it's been a lot of work, but we feel like we're getting our results now, and we're going to be having more and more appearances. Like I said, we do have attached a summary. The projects that we've done is we're listening to citizens' complaints. And what that is our meetings are open according to the open meeting laws, and anyone can present with their concern. They're read their rights as far as time and so forth. Another is the attending of the community events such as Juneteenth, Pride, the International Festival. They were all well attended, and I felt we were always well received. Groups learning and improvement speakers have occurred also. These speakers are addressing common problems, homelessness, advocacy with the Central Iowa Shelter to Wapello County Resources, and a list of the Mahaska-Wapello County Partnership Protecting Children. Filing human rights and related resolutions, and delivering the appropriate legislators' community letters. Another is resolutions have ranged from statements of conflict to the Middle East, which we've given to the appropriate groups, and I think we actually brought that statement to this group, and so forth. We're just always wanting to let people know what our actions, thoughts, and feelings are. Developed a very second record-keeping practice for minutes, agendas, and resolutions. And then the last is on the list is our subcommittees. And like I said, there's education and advocacy is a subcommittee, and we're working on compiling and providing access to digital lists in the community and resources. They're also working on the community survey to identify community needs. We did do a survey at the Juneteenth affair, and there was only one person that even questioned whether they would do the survey for us. I thought it was productive. You can send out 1,000 letters and you may get 3 back or 10, but we actually made a face-to-face contact and I thought it went well. Our marketing subcommittee is developing our promotional materials, our logos and so forth, and we've looked into what other human rights commissions are doing, and there's a variety all over the state. And last but not least is policy and the ultimate goals subcommittee. I think that group, they keep us in line. They're working on translating key city forms into Spanish and developing an effective language translation protocol. Are there any questions?
Looks like you enjoyed yourself. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any questions either. I just have a comment. Thank you guys for what you're doing and all the hard work you're doing for Ottumwa. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So in line with their report, one of the goals of the comprehensive plan, the goal number 4, if you're numbering them, was celebrating diversity. That was something that was established a few years ago and something that we continue to strive towards. That goal in particular was defined as, I'll just kind of read the outline. Throughout the public engagement process, the need to celebrate the diversity of Ottumwa came up as an important opportunity for the city in the decades ahead. While many smaller cities and rural areas are facing continued population decline, Ottumwa has an opportunity through its immigrant community to continue to grow its population. Ottumwa has managed to stabilize and modestly grow its population after decades of population decline, in part due to the number of new immigrant families coming to the area to work at large employers such as JBS or John Deere. Efforts should be made to help celebrate and embrace the increasing diversity of the community. This can be accomplished several ways, including multicultural festivals or celebrations, or getting more minorities involved in civic engagement, such as serving on boards or commissions. And I think we heard just a moment ago about some of the goals and things that this group is working towards. So along those lines, with the most recent updates, we're looking at 42% of the programs within Celebrating Diversity are either on track or completed. And there was 4 distinct categories within that. The first one was identified as investing in women, immigrant, veteran, and minority entrepreneurs, and that is roughly about 28% of the outlined strategies. Making Ottumwa livable and enjoyable for people of all ages and abilities, and that's at tracking about 48% complete. Celebrating diversity in our community is 27%, and treating all Ottumwans fairly and justly is tracking at 54%. So these are looking at the different strategies within that category and the progress being made within those as to where we're identifying that. And so that is something we're continuing to update. Overall, between all 4 goals, we're at about 19% of the 20-year plan complete. So we're kind of tracking about where we would hope to be. So that is just kind of, I'll be providing more updates throughout the year on where we're at with the comprehensive plan, but I thought this was a great opportunity with tying that diversity goal with the group tonight in their presentation. Also, I wanted to say a thank you A lot of times you hear people that say, "Oh yeah, I'll be there. I'm going to come to that meeting. I'll be there, and you'll see me." A lot of times they never show. So earlier today, we've got Dave Harris had mentioned that. He's like, well, I was invited to come to that council meeting tonight, then I might just do that. Dave, for anyone that doesn't know, is with us at the city here. He's provided some training in leadership and communication for city staff and supervisors. And he is back this week with the next phase of that, which is having difficult conversations. And so he's been with us the last couple days. We'll be here the next couple. I think from what I've heard from staff, they really enjoy his presentation style and the message that is going through that. That's where our core values and stuff kind of originated from, was from those first meetings, and something we're really looking to continue forward with. So thank you for coming tonight. On a serious note, I just wanted to make a quick mention that referring back to events from this weekend with the attempted assassination of our former president, it's a reminder, at least to me as I see it, of the challenges that public discourse can have and the danger of keyboard warriors, people that can hide behind their computer at home and can say whatever they want without any real repercussions of them personally. This doesn't only happen at the national level. You can see it at the state level, and we can see it, unfortunately, here in our own home at the local level. We're fortunate as a city to have, as a collective, a dedicated group of city staff and professionals, elected officials, people that serve on boards and commissions, and some of those with little to no pay. People that volunteer on our boards and commissions are doing so, and there's nothing to prevent anyone from any kind of critique or whatever they want to say about what's going well in the city or what they feel is not. And so I think just as a reminder of that, to all of us, just kind of take a second thought to appreciate all the good things we really do have, and to maybe take a second before putting something out there that might not exactly be true, or that you don't know is true. There could be some real damage to that, and that was just, I think, a reminder of the dangers that can come from that. Finally, I just want to wrap up with Reg Bri. I think everyone knows that is coming through Ottumwa next Thursday. We've got a great lineup of events happening not only here on the Bridgeview Center campus, featuring Night Ranger as the headlining group, but also the events that are happening in the Main Street area, the car show, some other entertainment, some of that celebrating diversity again with looking at some of the local groups and talents that we have. And if anyone is looking for more information on that, you can go to ottumwaregbri.com. We've got a list of events and also an opportunity to register to volunteer. So if you're looking for something to do, get out there, volunteer. We'd love to see you in the parks. We'd love to see you come down for Night Ranger, stay to help clean up after Night Ranger. We really could use some people for that. So, and that is a free concert, unless you want to pay for the VIP, which is still only $100 I think we still got some openings on that. And that includes hors d'oeuvres and an opportunity to see the band a little more up close and personal. So please come. There's a lot going on that day, and sign up to volunteer. And that is all I have tonight.
Hey, Phil, quick question. Are roads going to be shut down for RAGBRI?
There will be some roads that are shut down. That information is coming out as we get closer to the event to know which roads and which areas will be shut down.
Where can someone find that information if they want to know?
I am going to assume they can find that information now at ottumwaregbri.com.
And maybe our Facebook page?
In our Facebook page, I'm sure we'll link to ottumwaregbri.com.
Great. Thanks.
Just do it.
That was more fun.
Yeah, you don't want to put road closures out too far away from when they occur because that can be confusing. So they will be coming out next week.
It's
Thank
just
you.
more fun that way, Mayor.
Thanks, Phil. The
Um,
next,
Your Honor, could I just break in for a second? I don't want to scuttle Phil, but I am asking, are you prepared to give us some presentation on the three-day conference that you and O'Donnell presented or went to last week? Am I wrong?
Yeah, I didn't have anything prepared for tonight, but it'd
Okay,
be-
that's fine. I say, you and I haven't discussed it, so I don't want to scuttle you. But at some point in the future, you will give us a report on what occurred at that conference.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you.
okay, the next item on our agenda is when I ask if there's anyone in the audience that wants to speak on any of our agenda items tonight. I don't have any papers up here for the agenda items, but is there anybody that would like to speak on any of our agenda items tonight? Okay, we do have a person that would like to speak towards the end of our meeting when we get to the non-agenda items, so we'll do that later. The next thing is we'll move into two public hearings that we have, so I'll turn it over to Chris.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the disposition of city-owned property located at 109 East Woodland Avenue to Manny Martinez.
I'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and Jake, you're gonna carry this one, are you?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. So 109 East Woodland was a property that was placarded and abandoned. The city acquired it through 657A action, and the city accepted bids on the property until 2:00 p.m. on June 26, 2024. We received 7 bids. The top 2 bids tied, so we took another sealed bid with those 2 bids only. And Manny Martinez submitted the best bid in the amount of $35,000. And the staff recommends going ahead and selling him that property and let him start the rehabilitation process on that.
Does the council have any questions for Jake?
Jake, I don't understand how we acquired that property. I don't understand
Sure.
the term you use.
Yep. So the city placarded the property. I think this one was due to living conditions. It remained placarded for over the 6 months. I think it was close to a year and a half. At that point, our building inspectors, instead of condemning the property, thought that it was worth rehabilitation. So we went through the court system to take that on a 657A action to place it in the hands of someone that can rehabilitate the property.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any
Move to
other?
approve the recommendation, Your Honor.
Second.
Well, we have to like
Oh,
close
sorry.
the
I
have
public
to
hearing
close
and
the
he has
public hearing
to.
first.
Back
so-
up, back up.
Back up.
Does council have any other questions for Jake? Since this is a public hearing, I'd ask if anyone in the audience has any questions for Jake. If not, I'd go ahead and entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
Yes.
Councilmember Basu?
Yes.
Resolution number 158, 2024, accepting the bid and approving the disposal of 109 East Woodland Avenue to Manny Martinez for the sum of $35,000.
Move the recommendation.
Gotta wait until she reads it.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
Yes.
Councilmember Basu?
Yes.
Thank you, council.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on proposed ordinance number 3231, 2024, amending the Fire Protection and Prevention Code of the City of Ottumwa by adopting an amendment providing for standardization of performance compliance alternatives to automatic fire sprinkler systems and certain Group R occupancies. That's a mouthful, Zach.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and Zach Simonson is going to handle this.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. At previous meetings and work sessions, we've discussed this issue pretty substantially, and the kind of decided course of action was to have staff prepare something for a vote so that we can try to bridge some action on this particular issue. It's a response to changes that were made with the adoption of the 2021 Fire Code. There was an exemption for certain occupancies that they did not require sprinkler systems before that code was adopted. That is now being enforced that they are required for these occupancies. And there's been an issue raised by some of our economic development partners and some developers that that's a hindrance to continuing our progress downtown. And they've requested that we look at some kind of alternative that can help to bridge the time to when they can hopefully find ways to get these life safety systems into buildings. So I want to talk through what's in the ordinance as it's presented. The first thing is the ordinance is several pages long and it has a lot of particular sections to it, but most of those sections are not new. The only thing that's new in the ordinance is section 24. So in section 1, there's section 24. That's new. Everything that follows that are amendments that are already in the fire code. The reason those are in the ordinance is that the attorneys told us that by their interpretation of Iowa code, an ordinance needs to set out how the ordinance will read in the book of ordinances. So if we were to add a new section 24 where section 24 belongs, because it's identifying section 903 2.8 of the fire code, then every subsequent section also needs to be in the ordinance so that section 907, section 912, section 1003 are as they would read in the book of ordinances. And so the only thing that you need to look at for new language to highlight is just that section 1 that refers to section 1431. There are 5 things that are in that. As the ordinance is titled, the intent here is not to just create a blanket exception for sprinklers, but to standardize alternative performance compliance methods. So that would be language that's also used in the International Existing Building Code. Performance compliance alternatives are things where instead of achieving one standard, you do a combination of other things that do the best to replicate some of the effects of that standard. And so some of the influences that we had in writing those were, of course, first the original exception that did exist before the 21 fire code. That accounts for a lot of the form of how this is written. We also looked at recommended amendments to the fire code from the National Trust, which does the work on national historic preservation and does work related to historic buildings. And so we looked at their recommendations for fire code amendments in order to identify performance compliance alternatives as well. And then what is in here in the amendment is an exception to the sprinkler requirement for buildings that meet 5 conditions. The first is that the building is no more than 2 stories above grade, has 3 or fewer dwellings, and has less than 5,000 square feet per floor. So these would be small buildings that are typically of that downtown design that you have on downtown. You also have on Church Street. You have going up Court Hill, a couple of similar buildings like this. They're only 2 stories. They have very small footprints, and they don't have very many residential dwelling units. If a building is 3 stories tall, it would be required to have a sprinkler system if it is mixed use. If it is mixed use with R occupancies, it would be required to have a sprinkler system. Same as if it's mixed use with more than 5,000 square feet, or if it has more than 3 dwelling units. The second requirement is where group A2, B, and M occupancies are on the first floor. A2 is assembly type uses. These are restaurants, bars, I think those are the most common. Gaming floors are also an A2, but we don't have any of those.
Oh, what floor?
Gaming floors. We don't have any of those, but that's also an A2 occupancy. Group B occupancies are office and professional service type uses. So that'd be banks, beauty shops, civic administration, outpatient medical, print shops, radio stations. And then group M is retail, such as department stores, drugstores, markets, clothiers. So those uses can only be on the first floor for there to be an exception. And then the R2 occupancies have to be only on the upper floors for there to be an exception. That, again, is trying to drive at the character of the buildings, which are these historic type downtown or Church Street or Court Avenue mixed use buildings. Also that there are 2 approved exits per floor. And approved is not just a word, that's a word defined in the code. It means that it's to the satisfaction of the building official, the exit is approved. And then all dwellings are separated by a 2-hour rated fire barrier, and where any penetrations to adjoining buildings exist, they're required to use 2-hour fire rated doors, which comply with NFP 80, which is the standard for fire doors, and also use self-closing devices, smoke seals, and fire rated hinges. That's also spelled out in NFPA 80. And then where the property owner signs a voluntary agreement to participate in a shared sprinkler system in the event that one is installed and available at that property. The council had the opportunity, and I think many of you did, sit in on a presentation from the West Des Moines Fire Department that was related to their historic Valley Junction neighborhood, where over 12 years they were able to get 3 blocks of their district to have these shared sprinkler systems. They make one entrance for a service. It runs through the buildings all the way down the block, and then anyone can connect to it if they need to. Staff believes that that's a great approach for downtown sprinkler systems. It minimizes the footprint and the infrastructure required to serve the buildings. It helps to offset cost if the city can participate in putting a program like that together, and so it is our intent to pursue these programs. We believe that the Main Street Challenge Grant is one opportunity that could be used to fund this that is available to our community, and so we'll be looking at that. We'll also be looking at Iowa Great Places, a designation we've tried to achieve before, but that funding was what helped Valley Junction get their shared systems off the ground, so that's another designation we're looking at achieving. And so those will be projects we look at doing. In the event that we can do that and a certain block is served, then anyone who has previously taken advantage of this exemption would have already signed an agreement to participate in that voluntary system. They could not object, they could not decline to build out their extension that uses that sprinkler system in that event. And so our attorneys have assured us that they are able to write a voluntary agreement that would work and would satisfy our requirements for that. The idea for that really came from how we do annexation agreements for participating in the city sewer system. People who don't currently live contiguously to the city city boundary, but do decide to be served by city sewer because it is available to them, possibly where they live, they would sign an agreement that if they ever are contiguous to the city, then they would voluntarily annex and they would waive their ability to resist that annexation. That's kind of where that idea came from, and we think that that would be a good approach to getting people to participate in the shared system when the time comes that we can have that be available. This has been a really difficult issue to work through, especially on the staff side, having to balance all the different things that really are a consideration: economic development, property rights, but balancing that with equity, with safety, has been absolutely a challenge. I will say that this ordinance was put together by me and by my office. The fire department did not want to compromise on the position that they had. They want the code to stay the same, so I'm not speaking for the fire department. This is just my recommendation from my office, but I do believe, as the building official for the city of Ottumwa, as an ICC certified combination building inspector, that this is a good direction to go. The performance compliance methods here are more strict than what existed before the 21 fire code was adopted. This is not just the amendment we had before. This adds more rigor, and I believe that's appropriate and effective. And then I will also just add that there's been public comment that you've received by your emails at the previous meetings. I spoke to Mark Rowe and to Fred Zeziger. They couldn't be here, but as the directors of GoPIP and Main Street Ottumwa, they did want to convey, again, that their position is the same, that they believe this amendment would help with their work as the principal economic development, downtown development folks in the community, and who really raised the need for this issue to be addressed.
Does council have any questions for Zach?
Well, first, I just want to say thank you, Zach, and to your department for doing this. I know it took a lot of work, and we gave you a lot of questions, a lot of things to consider. So I truly appreciate taking on that issue and truly thinking about all aspects of that. So I truly appreciate that. I just want to clarify right now, if someone wanted to come in and build, are there exceptions to sprinklers right now without this?
For these particular occupancies, there is not. If somebody wants to remodel an existing mixed-use building and that remodel will involve a change of use, then they would be required to install the sprinkler system. So if they were to take a building that currently has an M occupancy on the first floor and no apartment upstairs, and they wanted to develop that apartment upstairs, they would have to install sprinklers for that entire building. If they have an apartment upstairs and they want to change the use of whatever was downstairs, then they would have to install the sprinklers, or they would have to look at the performance compliance methods that are described in the existing building code, which is what we've attempted to standardize. I think that there are approaches where you could take with an architect and you could spend considerable effort to draw the same sorts of performance compliance strategies, that we are below a certain size, that we are only certain types of uses, that we have 2 approved exits, and that you would be able to potentially engineer out of that requirement even there. So standardizing the performance compliance methods, I think, is really the best approach to that. And to answer your question, most generally, yes. The sprinkler exemption that existed before the 21 fire code was removed in the 21 fire code.
Okay. And then I also just want to say too, I appreciate the, that this isn't like a closed issue, that you and your department will continue to look at how we can get to the ultimate goal of the sprinkler system using all the information that has come in. So I truly appreciate that and all the work that you've done.
Yeah, and I think that's important. And, you know, I'm not going to pick on the Courier. I know what they meant with the headline today, that was the council wants to achieve finality on the issue. What they meant was, of course, that we just want to bring the last several meetings we've had to a close on this issue, but it is not final. We'll be continuing to look at this with every code update, with every opportunity to pursue funding for the sprinkler, the central sprinkler systems, for every incident that happens. You know, the fire department looks at every incident that happens, and, you know, if in the worst event something is to happen, of course we're going to be able to be reactive. So all those things are instances where we're going to continue to look at the code.
Does council have any other comments or questions for Zach?
I have just a couple comments. First off, Zach, I want to thank you for, you know, what you and your crew did. And, you know, I did research this a lot, and I feel like I need to be transparent to you and the public. You guys did do a lot of hard work. You gave me tours of the buildings, and I appreciated it. I went with an open mind. And before I say what I'm going to say, I want everybody to understand, because I feel one way, I don't think that everybody else doesn't care about safety. I don't think that at all. I think the number one goal is safety. To be transparent, I'm still not for the amendment. However, the people who are not the enemy, and I don't think they don't care about safety. Just for transparency, I want to say I do not want progress downtown to stop. That is why I ran, is because I love Ottumwa. Ottumwa is extremely important to me. Like I said before, I want Ottumwa open for business. It's just when I weigh everything, and I know we all have our own opinion, when the experts got together, people experts in their field, and they decided that this was the safest thing, I just believe that those experts are correct, and I don't believe they had any ill intention to stop progress in any town or cost anybody undue funds. So like I said, I'm against it. However, I'm not against the people who are for it. So, and I don't think that anybody discounts safety. So that's all I wanted to say, just to be transparent to everybody.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. And this is not to be argumentative, but I will say there are 33 amendments, or 32 before this, but there are 32 amendments to the code that were adopted when we adopted the 21 code. Some of those to make it more restrictive, some of them to change things. One of them is to address specifically sprinklers in single-family residential uses, which we do not require, although the IFC 2021 would require. So I think that every community does have to do some degree of balancing. And, you know, I think that I can respect that we're on a different side of where that line was drawn here, but I will just, you know, not to be argumentative, will point out that we have made amendments.
Right, and I agree with you, I really do. And when I say I appreciate what you did for me, I do, man.
Yeah, absolutely, I appreciate that.
It's just, with this, I had to focus on this issue and not like residential and not everything. I just took it for, I mean, if we were gonna talk about resident, that'd be a different thing, you know, so. And I don't mean that disrespectful, I just mean, you know, that's, and to point out what I'm saying, they did take me on tours, and you know, I did find some good things down there. There's a lot of progress going on down there, and I don't want to stop it. I just can't. So, but I do appreciate everybody, and I do respect everybody's opinion and what they say.
Zach, I've talked with several merchants downtown, as well as other people who are not merchants downtown, and the cost of installation, even though they may get some assistance from state or federal government, is astronomical.
Yep.
And there are many people, businesses downtown, that are 3 stories high, but they don't use the top floor. But that would not negate the fact that all of this would require them to become sprinkled, I think. If I'm wrong, you can correct me.
As written, the third story of that building would still trigger a sprinkler requirement. However, that relates to whether there's change of use. I think that if you continue to use the building as it's used now and you're not occupying that third floor and you're not making changes, then you probably are not going to have an obligation to install a sprinkler requirement in this code. Obviously, every case can be a little bit different. If you were to do a change of use that relates to the number of apartments that are on your second floor, or if you were to change the first floor use to something that has a greater fire risk, then even in that situation, without using the third floor, you may still have a sprinkler obligation. But as this is written, it is not intended to exempt mixed use that is going to activate a third floor that isn't currently being used. That would still be required.
And then I believe the secondary problem is, I don't believe we have water lines that are capable of carrying sprinkler systems throughout downtown, even if they were cooperative. So we would have to rip up the streets and start all over, and I don't think that's something that I want to do. I wouldn't vote for this.
Right, so this amendment is meant to exempt several projects that would have to install sprinklers. There would still be some that will have to install sprinklers, but voting this down will not change that reality. This is only creating some opportunities for some businesses to not have to install a sprinkler that do. It is not everybody. We didn't exempt everybody, but we are exempting more people with this ordinance than are exempt today.
If we voted for this ordinance, that would be a change from the last ordinance that's in place, correct?
Right now, you
The
have
ordinance
to-
right now requires sprinklers for all mixed-use buildings, two-story, anything. This is freeing up the 2 stories. This is freeing up 5,000 square feet or fewer. This is freeing up some buildings that currently have to have a sprinkler now. So you look at, for example, the south side of the 200 block where Dollar General was, or Bridge City Appliance was. Those buildings are all 2-story. If you were to do a mixed-use project there today, you were to finish the apartments upstairs, you would have to install sprinklers in all those buildings. That wasn't the case before the 21 code. It is the case now. It would probably not be the case anymore after this ordinance. It depends on if you wanted to do too many apartments or if you wanted to do really intensive uses, but you would probably not have to after this ordinance. So this ordinance is designed to create some exceptions for at least some of those buildings.
But the majority of those are not on Main Street or North Side. They are, as they stand, this would require them to
No.
get.
Right.
No, this is meant to exempt the majority of buildings, except for the 3-story buildings, except for a couple of buildings that are very large, like the 10,000 square foot buildings or things like that. This would exempt them where they are not currently exempted. There would be fewer people that have to pay to install a sprinkler system as a result of this ordinance than do today.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, a 2-story building wasn't necessarily required to have a sprinkler system. With the change a couple years ago, all of those buildings, including the 2-story buildings, would now need to have a sprinkler system. This request is to put it back to how it was a couple years ago with some improvements to that.
Right.
The word exceptions is really difficult to digest.
Right, and I'm sorry about that. I'll try to explain as best I can, and if you want to interrupt me, or if there's a way I can do it better. Before we adopted the 2021 fire code, there was an exemption in the code that allowed, in general, downtown buildings to not have sprinkler systems. And that's how a lot of the projects that were done successfully were able to be accomplished financially downtown. When we adopted the 2021 fire code, there wasn't very much discussion around it, but that exception was removed. And so now all of those buildings are required to. We were asked by the business development and economic development community to look at reintroducing the exception that used to exist and does not exist anymore. And we tried our best to collaborate and compromise to come up with the best version of that we can. It's a little more restrictive than what was the case before, but it is more permissive than what we have now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kinda.
Okay. I'm sorry. It is a really complicated one.
Right now, everyone has to have has to have sprinklers if they want to do for the most part, some form of
Improve their
development.
property.
Yeah,
Right.
and so if to do that, you were right, we probably would have to tear up the street to put in the lines. This exemption would assist in some buildings not, or being able to move forward without having to put a sprinkler if they met these 5 expectations. So without this, they have to. With this, they potentially may not have to put a sprinkler in.
I guess I'd just like to mention too that the code that we're referring to here with this, whether it's the International Building Code or the International Fire Code, I mean, these codes are typically written by attorneys and insurance agents, and they're sought out for advice on that. They are writing these to the most strictest standards possible because they're essentially covering their backside on this, so that if anything were to happen, we're in a sue-happy environment. People would be looking back, oh, well, the code said this, well, who wrote that? And, so they're going to be writing it to the most strictest way possible, and then it's left to individuals to interpret that, and where it makes sense, to be able to allow some exceptions. Now, that does put the risk back on us with that, but they're going to write to the most strictest way possible.
Does council have any other questions for Zach?
My comment would be, until I find out more about what you've explained, I am not going to vote for it.
Then
I realize we're not in a voting mode right now, but I'm just saying, I don't think I can make a logical conclusion to the information that you have given me tonight.
Then I would ask to table this from a vote. I know we're still in open session right now, but I would ask to table. So.
Yeah, I think maybe we can seek legal advice since we're in the public hearing here. I think we'd have to, if we're doing that, we'd be holding over the public hearing.
Yes. Yeah, you would have to vote to recess the public hearing and continue it at a later date.
Yep.
So I would move to recess the public hearing and hold it at a later date.
Is there a date specific?
2 weeks from today?
we have
No,
to set a
no,
date
not
right
2 weeks
now?
from today. The second meeting in August. That's what I would like.
I second it.
Get it? Okay, Chris will take the roll.
And then we close. Yes. Or no, we don't close.
We don't close.
We don't close it. Okay.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
No,
We're voting to
To
close the
table?
public.
To table?
We're voting to table the item.
I'm voting not to table.
Okay. Councilmember Basu?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 4-1.
Thank you.
Resolution, oh, hang on just a second.
Sorry, this is Logan.
Yeah, Logan.
Can you just confirm that that was to hold open the public hearing?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Resolution number 132, 2024, approving purchase policies and procedures for the city of Ottumwa. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 132, 2024.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Mr. O'Donnell.
Thank you. At the previous meeting, we did approve the ordinance allowing for the purchase policy to be approved by resolution. It will be approved on an annual basis so that if there's any changes, and it keeps it fresh within the council's mind. You did get a copy of the final draft, so has all of the department heads and managers. We received some final comments. We did make one change, which I did send out to you in relation to emergency expenditures. Otherwise, the policy remains the same. Copies of which, like I said, you did have in advance and were part of the packet. So I will take any questions that you may have on the policy itself.
Does council have any questions for Cole?
Nope.
If not, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
Yes,
Councilmember Basu?
Yes.
Don't go away.
Resolution number 150, 2024, directing the acceptance of a proposal to purchase 6.860 million, subject to adjustment, general obligation capital loan notes, series 2024, and approving the form and authorizing execution of a note purchase agreement. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 150, 2024.
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Okay, Mr. O'Donnell?
Yeah, the bonds were sold today. The average yield is 3.55%, which I think is pretty good given the market. There was some inclination that it might be above 4%, but we are below that. It's not the same as it was 2 years ago when money was practically free, but I think in discussion with the city administrator, 3.55% was very good. The actual amount with the par amount and the premium is $6,842,613.30. The net amount after the cost of deliverance and the bond insurance and the underwriter's fee comes out to be $6,711,340.70. When I went through the planned projects that were to be funded from the bonding, the fire engine and the financial software came in at a lower price, so those are already adjusted. The total obligated with those adjustments was $6,710,063. So right now there is a surplus of bond funds of $1,277.70. I did send out to department heads and managers that we need to have those projects come in at or under budget in order to stay within the funding that we have. There would be exceptions if there happen to be certain dedicated reserves that we could apply to it, or if they have any other additional revenues that might be able to be applied. But the net amount does fund the projects as originally presented with those adjustments for the fire engine and the financial software.
Can you tell us from your memory what the rate of the last bonds that we sold?
That I am not sure of. What I can tell you is the last bonds that I sold were at 2.1%.
Okay. So we're moving up the scale a little.
Right, yeah.
Very good.
And then I can tell you that 2 years ago, we had $1 million bank loan that was at 1%.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions from council for Cole?
We do have a representative from Piper Sandler here tonight, if you have any questions from him.
Did he do the best job he could in selling our bonds?
Yes, he did.
Okay, thank you. That was my
Yes,
question.
yes. I've worked with Piper Sandler in Keokuk, and they always do a good job for us.
Thank you.
Okay, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
Yes.
Councilmember Basu?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution number 160, 2024, approving and authorizing execution of a First Amendment to the Purchase and Development Agreement by and between the City of Ottumwa and 21 Properties LLC. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 160, 2024.
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Simonson, it's all
Thank you,
yours.
Mayor. Thank you, Council. So this relates to the purchase and development agreement we entered into with Kading Properties at the May 21st, 2024 meeting. They had the option to purchase 30 lots that are city-owned vacant lots so that they could do infill development further to a workforce housing tax credit project. One of those parcels was 1035 West 3rd. Councilman Cavanagh will be especially familiar with this. A gentleman came to City Hall hoping to purchase 1035 West 3rd because he thought it was available for purchase. Councilman Cavanagh happened to be in the building that day, and we had to inform that gentleman that it was currently under a purchase option. It was not available. He wasn't pleased with that, but we said we'd try to see what we could do. I did contact Kading, This property was not in their original list of phase 1 or phase 2 that they submitted with their grant. So I asked if that meant that they'd be comfortable releasing it from the purchase option, and they did agree to do that. So this would be an amendment to that agreement that would remove their option for 1035 West 3rd. That would go back to being available. And so we'll contact the person who was interested in purchasing it. He was looking at building a duplex project on that lot. So we'll contact him and we'll let him know that it is going to now be available again. And then if he wants to continue to purchase that, he'll have every right to submit an offer to purchase that.
Does council have any questions for Zach?
Zach, are we still under the same hammer as we agreed to previously, that we pay, the city pays for all of the contract work, somebody doing a survey, that kind of stuff?
So we will not pay for any of their due diligence as far as their surveys, their site plan designing, any of that. We would pay for abstracting and title work for these.
And that was the $540
Right.
per unit. Is that solid on all of them? Or
So
is
that would only
just
be
an
on the ones they choose to purchase, but we would have to pay title work for the lots they choose to purchase.
They wouldn't want
by
to
the
negotiate, would they?
We tried to negotiate when we did the agreement the first time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
Yes.
Councilmember Basu?
Yes.
Resolution number 161, 2024, approving change order number 2, increasing the cost by $16,100 with a new contract amount of $2,843,924.60 for the Legacy Field Soccer Complex project. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 161, 2024.
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Okay, Gene?
Thank you, Your Honor. On December 19th, 2023, the City of Ottumwa entered into a contract with Bi-State Contracting of West Burlington, Iowa, to build 3 soccer fields in Central Addition Park for a cost of $3,048,138. Change order number 1 reduced the cost of the project by $220,313.42 to $2,827,824.60. Change order number 2 will increase the cost of the project by $16,100 to a new contract amount of $2,843,924.60. Change order number 2 will involve increasing the size of the water line that feeds the soccer complex restroom building and irrigation system from a 2-inch diameter line to a 3-inch diameter line. Change order number 2 is attached.
Does council have any questions for Gene?
That's the facility they're working on right now over there, the brick block buildings they're building up over there.
Yes, and doing grading work also.
And how many restrooms is involved? Or is it 2 or 4?
It's just one restroom building that will have both men's and women's restrooms, but we'll also have the irrigation controls inside of that building.
Okay, so multiple restrooms and irrigation control.
Yes, all in one building though.
Right, thank you.
Any other questions from council for Gene? If not, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
Yes.
Councilmember Basu?
Yes.
This is the time in our council meeting where I would ask for people who want to speak on non-agenda items, and we do have one gentleman that has indicated he'd like to speak, so I'll ask Mr. Niner to come up.
Good evening. It's Mitch Niner, 420 Hackworth Street here in Ottumwa. Just like to make a quick comment, and Keith, bear with me, I know you just kind of adopted this whole thing. Fire department staffing levels, you know, I guess I'm a little confused at why we don't have people on board that's smart enough to create a civil service list and staff our fire department and quit playing with them. You have a person that's in the temporary position of a fire chief that could be our fire chief. Why are we not appointing this person? You know, why do we continue to play with public safety? You know, you're playing with the citizens', you know, insurance rates in the end. You're messing around with another study that's just outrageous on price, that happens to be from Wisconsin, where Phil is from, and happens to have another name of Rath in Wisconsin that created the triangle. Doesn't that sound a little fishy to you people? It sounds a little fishy to me. You didn't get 3 bids. I don't understand why we're playing with our fire department. You know, you played with our franchise fee. You took our franchise fee and paid yourself. You didn't give hardly anything to the workers. The workers in this city are the face of this community. They're the ones out there fixing our streets the best they can, mowing our grasses the best they can, and you just continue to play with these people. I guess I'm just completely lost, Phil. I want to just remind you guys who you work for. City council works for the people. You don't work for City Hall. You don't have to do anything he says. You work for the people. You all campaigned on issues, and you just turned into ghosts.
If you're gonna start name calling, you need to sit down.
Please remind
If you're gonna
yourself.
start name calling, you need to sit down.
Excuse me. I would just like to remind you, don't take my word for it, research it yourself. He was fired from his last job for doing the same stuff he's doing right now in our community. Our community is self-destructing from the inside out. You
Mr.
people
Snyder,
not
I'm going to call you
understand that.
out of order.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak on any non-agenda items this evening? If not,
I'd just like to refer back to my prior comments about civil discourse. Thank you.
does any of the council have any public announcements or communications that they'd like to make tonight?
I do. First and foremost, there's a couple things I do want to say. We had a public session, or a work session about this issue yesterday, and I truly wish you would have been there too, because that would have been a great time to also voice some concerns and issues, and then we would have been able to also talk about that more. So while I appreciate you coming today, I wish you would have been there last night to also hear some of that conversation too. I take offense to saying that we are, I think you said goats, or ghosts, I'm sorry, goats. There's people up here that are working hard, are asking questions, and as you know, Mr. Niner, some of that stuff isn't out in the public too, and some of it does happen there also. So I just want to say that also. The other thing I want to say too, especially as Mr. Raff says, some public discourse and some things too, and with some of the meetings that we've had as council people too, we need to remember to be respectful to one another, that we can have differing opinions and that we grow when we have differing opinions, and that's how we hear, that's how we learn. But it's not okay to be disrespectful to one another, especially during a council meeting. I know things get heated, but first off, we shouldn't be having our feelings come into this stuff. So I just want to remind all of us up here too, that we need to be respectful to one another also. And to everyone sitting here, to our employees and to the people of Ottumwa too. So those are the comments I have, but I do want to talk about something on a more happier note. This weekend on Saturday, let's go ahead and support other departments that we have. The Ottumwa Regional Airport is having an event. It's going to be a great event. It's a fly-in breakfast, and we're going to have World War II era planes, birds, is that what we call them? Birds come in. There's going to be a car show, food trucks, and vendors, and World War II era music playing. And it starts at 7 o'clock with a breakfast, and then the fun is throughout the whole day. So for all of those out there that are looking for something to do, I recommend going out to our airport, because not only do we have a great facility, but they put on some really great events. And let's support our departments. You know, we talk about the same departments over and over again, and we have other departments here that are doing some really great things too. So let's get out there and support the Ottumwa Regional Airport and also the Ottumwa Naval Air Station Museum too. So again, that starts at 7 and it goes until 3. Perfect. And they're still looking for volunteers, and there's a volunteer meeting on Friday, or talk to JD and he will get you the information. Thank you.
Chair, I think I could comment that no one has to bring their own wings to the fly-in.
Just you.
Thanks, council lady.
You're welcome.
I would like to comment more on a more serious comment regarding the hiring of fire department and so on. We are required to go by civil service rules, and we are required to go by finding people that will work and can pass the tests. So, as a new member on the council this year, I don't see us fumbling the ball. I see us challenging what we have to do and try to find people to help us do it.
Yep.
That's my comment.
Thank you.
Does council have any other comments or announcements they'd like to make? Okay, if not, then I guess I'd entertain a motion to adjourn our city council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
Yes.
Councilmember Basu?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for coming to our city council meeting tonight.
Did you get it?